I spent every weekend for a whole year babysitting my nephew, and I didn't ask for a dime. Then one day, I reached out to my sister-in-law and asked if she could help watch our dog while I was away on a work trip. She actually laughed and said something like, "I'm not your assistant." When I told my wife about it, she just said, "You can't expect people to owe you anything." That same night, I got home and found our dog gone. There was a note taped to the crate. I'm a 37-year-old guy living in Boise, Idaho with my wife Alyssa, who's 35. We've been married for 9 years. No kids, but we have a golden retriever named Bailey. Honestly, she's like our kid. We rescued her when she was 2, and she's been part of our family ever since. My brother Chad, who's 40, and his wife Miranda, 38, live about 20 minutes away. They've got a son, Landon. He's 8 now. Over the past year, I've watched Landon every single weekend. Not once in a while, not here and there, every weekend. It started when Miranda went back to work. She's a nurse working Friday through Sunday, and Chad works rotating shifts at a warehouse, so their schedules often clashed. Miranda called me one day, asked if I could help out by watching Landon for a few hours. I said sure without thinking twice. I figured, family helps family, right? But that one favor slowly turned into a weekly routine. No discussion, no checking in. They just started dropping him off every Friday night. Sometimes Miranda didn't even come to the door. She'd just text, "He's on the porch," smiley face, and drive away. I never made a fuss. Not once. Because Landon's a good kid, kind of quiet, real sweet. He's into puzzles, cartoons, and dinosaurs. I figured if they were having a tough time with childcare, I could help. We never charged them. No payment, no trade, just being helpful. But after a while, it started to wear on me. Not because of Landon, but because of Miranda. She never once thanked me, never offered to return the favor. She basically treated me like free childcare. Sometimes she'd call last minute and say she needed to drop him off Thursday night instead, or keep him until Monday morning. No heads up, no sorry, nothing. Alyssa told me not to stress over it, just to say no if it became too much. So I did say no, one time. Alyssa and I had made plans that weekend. Miranda flipped, said I was being selfish and messing up their schedule. Chad called me later asking what the big deal was. Said, "It's just a kid. You don't have your own, you've got time." That really got under my skin. But I let it go. Then, about a few months ago, I had a work trip coming up to Nashville, just 4 days. Alyssa had her own thing that same weekend, a nursing conference up in Boston. We weren't going to be home, so someone had to look after Bailey. I didn't want to board her. She's older now and doesn't do well around loud or aggressive dogs. So I asked Miranda if she could swing by the house, feed Bailey, and let her out in the yard. I even offered to bring Bailey to their place if that worked better. Just for 4 days. Miranda laughed in my face. Not a chuckle, a smug, loud laugh. Then she said something like, "I'm not your assistant. Don't try to dump your dog on me. Pay someone." That stung. I reminded her that I'd watched her son every weekend for over a year. Her response? Crossed arms and a shrug. "Nobody made you do that," she said. "You volunteered. That was your choice." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just stood there, trying to make sense of how someone could be so ungrateful. Not even a polite refusal, just total disrespect. I told Alyssa about it that night, expecting her to back me up. Instead, she looked at me and said, "You can't expect people to owe you." That hurt more than anything. My own wife thought I was wrong for asking for help after everything I'd done. I started calling around trying to find a place to board Bailey. Almost everything was either completely booked or way too expensive. There was one place that had space, but they wanted nearly $100 per night. Alyssa offered to stop by during her lunch breaks and check in on Bailey. I wasn't crazy about that setup, but it seemed like the only real option left. I flew out early Wednesday morning. That first day, Alyssa texted to say she saw Bailey and that everything was fine. I thanked her. But by Thursday, things went quiet. No updates at all. Friday morning, I sent her a message, no reply. Tried again that night. Still nothing. By Saturday, I was getting nervous. I called her twice, but both times it went straight to voicemail. My stomach started turning. I didn't know if something had gone wrong or if she was just tied up with something. I got back Sunday night around 10:15. I was drained from the trip. Pulled into the driveway and noticed the porch light was off, which was unusual. Bailey usually barked when she heard my car, but it was dead silent. I stepped inside, set my bags down, and called out to her. No sound. I checked her water, bone dry. Food bowl? Empty. Her crate was open, but she wasn't there. Then I saw it, a piece of paper taped to the crate. Big black letters scrawled across it with a sharp "it." Next time, pay for a sitter. My heart sank. I tore through the house, checking every room, nothing. I looked in the yard, the basement, the garage. She was just gone. I tried to stay calm. Picked up my phone and called Alyssa, no answer. Tried Miranda, nothing again. Finally, I rang Chad. He picked up on the second ring. I asked him straight up where Bailey was. He acted like he had no clue what I was talking about. I told him she was missing, and there was a note left behind. There was this pause, and then he said maybe she got out. I told him flat out, dogs don't write notes. There was a moment of silence. Then he said he'd ask Miranda if she knew anything. That pretty much told me everything I needed to know. I hung up and sat on the floor. I didn't cry, but the anger was deep, cold, and heavy. The kind that doesn't explode, just sits there and burns. About an hour later, Alyssa walked in. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, waiting. She glanced at the crate and immediately went pale. Sat down and said she'd been busy and that she thought Miranda would handle it. Said she mentioned it to her after I asked. I stared at her. She told Miranda, the same person who laughed in my face when I asked for help. She didn't answer. I told her she'd left Bailey alone and forgotten about her for days. She said, she's just a dog. That's when I lost it. I stood up and told her that if anything had happened to Bailey, she'd better hope it wasn't serious. Because at that point, it wasn't just about a dog, it was about the kind of person she was, the kind of people they all were. I stormed out, drove straight to Chad's place, and didn't bother knocking. Miranda opened the door like she knew I'd be coming. She started with, "Don't even think about barging in," but I pushed past her anyway. Chad was on the couch and stood up quickly, telling me not to start anything. I didn't waste time. I asked where she was. They glanced at each other, and then I heard it. A soft whimper coming from downstairs. I ran to the basement and flung open the laundry room door. There she was. Bailey, curled up in a corner, shaking. Her ribs were sticking out. No food, no water, just a filthy towel beneath her. When she saw me, her tail wagged weakly. I dropped to my knees and pulled her into a hug. Then I turned back to face them. They locked her down there. Miranda rolled her eyes and said not to be dramatic, that they fed her. But they hadn't. Bailey was clearly dehydrated, hadn't eaten in days. Miranda just shrugged and said, "She's fine." I picked Bailey up and walked out of that house, but I knew this wasn't over. They wanted to make it seem like I was the one overreacting, like I'd asked for too much. Fine. If that's how they wanted to play it, they were about to learn what it really feels like to be used, to be taken for granted, to be ignored. I wasn't going to scream or make a scene. I was going to stay calm, smart, focused, and I was going to make sure they didn't forget any of it. The next morning, I called the vet as soon as they opened. Took Bailey in right away. She was 8 pounds underweight, dehydrated. Her paws were raw, probably from pacing in that basement. The vet said she hadn't eaten in days. She had pressure sores on her sides from lying on bare concrete. I asked for full documentation. Everything, notes, records, photos. I wanted it in writing. I didn't tell Alyssa. I didn't tell Miranda. Didn't tell Chad. Instead, I started building a folder. Printed photos of Bailey from the day I found her. Included the vet's diagnosis, the note taped to her crate, and even pictures of the basement. Then I called an attorney. Not because I was chasing money, but because I wanted accountability. But before that, I made a quiet move. I stopped babysitting Landon. No warning, no explanation. Friday came and went. No one showed up. Then, around 6 p.m., Miranda called, confused. Asked where I was. Said they were waiting outside. I told her plainly, I wasn't babysitting anymore. She laughed, thought I was joking. When I made it clear I wasn't, she started yelling, asking how I could just leave them hanging when they had jobs and plans and Chad couldn't afford to miss another weekend. I told her to figure it out, then hung up. A few minutes later, Chad called. Said I was punishing their kid over an argument. I told him no, I was setting a boundary, one I should have drawn a long time ago. He went quiet for a moment, then told me I was overreacting. I said I had the vet records to prove otherwise, then hung up again. That night, Alyssa walked into the bedroom while I was folding laundry. She asked if I was seriously not going to watch Landon anymore. I said no. She said I was doing it just to get back at Miranda. But it wasn't about revenge. I told her I was doing it to protect myself and Bailey. She crossed her arms, said I was blowing things way out of proportion. I asked her why it bothered her so much then. She didn't respond. just turned and left the room. Over the next 3 weeks, Miranda and Chad went full nuclear online. Started posting vague complaints on Facebook about how some people will abandon your child over petty drama and how families should always be there for each other. They didn't mention the dog, but I did. I posted one photo, Bailey lying in her crate, the note taped to it in bold black letters. The caption read, "After watching someone's child for free for over a year, I asked for a small favor." This was the response. The comments blew up. Mutual friends started messaging me asking what happened. Alyssa's sister even called me directly, shocked, asking, "Wait, they locked Bailey in a basement?" Miranda tried to spin it. Posted a long rant claiming people were just exaggerating for attention, that dogs are totally fine alone for a day or two. That was the final straw. I sent everything to animal control. The whole folder, vet records, photos, receipts, written statements. Told them exactly where I found Bailey and how long she'd been there. I even included a screenshot of Miranda's Facebook post claiming it was no big deal. 3 days later, an officer called me. Said they were looking into it. Asked if I was willing to press charges. I said yes. After that, I went through my security camera footage. We have a doorbell cam and another one pointed inside, toward the back door. I wasn't even looking for anything specific, but what I found hit harder than anything else. Alyssa never came to check on Bailey. Not once. For the entire 4 days I was gone, she never stepped inside the house. She lied to me. To my face. That night, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. Just said she thought Miranda would stop by. That she said she would swing through. You didn't even check? I asked her, my voice flat. Alyssa just stared at me. I was tired, she said. I had work. My hands were shaking, but not from rage, from something colder. You let our dog starve in an empty house, I said. And all you have to say is you were tired? I didn't think it was a big deal, she mumbled. That was it. Something inside me snapped, but not loud. Not messy. Just final. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, grabbed a pillow and blanket, and said I was sleeping in the guest room. She followed me down the hall, huffing, "You're being dramatic." "I don't trust you anymore," I said. And I meant every word. Not long after that, Animal Control called me again. They'd visited Chad and Miranda. Found Bailey's fur in the basement. Took photos. They were issuing a citation and a fine, and depending on the prosecutor, maybe more. I didn't care if they ended up in jail. I just wanted them to feel the weight of what they'd done. I wanted people to stop seeing Miranda as this tired, overworked mom and start seeing her for what she really was, a woman so selfish, so petty, she locked up a living animal to punish someone. Then something happened that caught me completely off guard. Landon called me from Chad's phone. He was crying. "Why don't you want to see me anymore?" My chest cracked open. I told him, "It's not about you, buddy. I love you. I always have. But some of the grown-ups didn't make the right choices." He whispered, "I miss Bailey." "Me too," I said, my voice barely there. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, torn between wanting revenge and needing justice. For Bailey, for Landon, for myself. But it wasn't over yet. About a week later, I was served. Miranda and Chad had filed a civil complaint against me. I actually laughed when I first saw it. Thought it was a joke. But it wasn't. They were claiming I had caused them emotional distress, that I endangered Landon's emotional stability by abandoning childcare without notice, and that my social media post was a deliberate smear campaign meant to hurt their reputation. They wanted $2,000 in damages. I stared at the paperwork like it was written in a language I didn't recognize. Then I handed it straight to my lawyer, the same one I'd called right after I found Bailey. He looked it over and said, "This won't go anywhere, but they're not trying to win. They're trying to scare you." So I did what I should have done from the start. I didn't back down. I countersued. Filed a civil complaint for veterinary bills, emotional distress, and, most importantly, animal neglect. I attached everything: photos, receipts, vet notes, the animal control report. I even found something new in the doorbell footage: Miranda entering my home, picking up Bailey, and walking out. I hadn't noticed it before. She didn't just neglect Bailey. She came into my house without permission, took my dog, and dumped her in that basement like she was garbage. I filed a police report for unlawful entry and animal cruelty. That's when things got real. Chad called me, voice trembling. "Man, we didn't mean for this to go so far. Miranda's freaking out. Can we please talk?" "You had your chance," I said. "Now it's mine." Alyssa got involved again. this time without knowing what had already been set in motion. When I told her everything, the footage, the countersuit, the report, she exploded. "You're trying to ruin my family," she shouted. "No," I said calmly. "Your family did that themselves. I'm just shining a light on it. You're dragging Landon into this." "No, they did that. The moment they used me like a free babysitter and left my dog to starve." She left that night, took a bag, slammed the door, and disappeared. No call, no text, 2 full days of silence. I didn't chase her. Instead, I made one last call to Alyssa's parents. Her father answered. "What's going on?" I told him. Everything. The basement, the footage, the lies, the betrayal. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said, "We'll talk to her. Alyssa's parents aren't perfect, but they've always loved Bailey. They were the ones who helped us adopt her in the first place." That same night, Alyssa and her mom showed up at my door. Alyssa sat on the edge of the couch like she had something rehearsed. Something final. "I think we need to separate for a while," she said. "This has gotten out of control," Alyssa said, her voice shaky. "No," her mother interrupted sharply. "You need to fix this." "Mom, you don't understand." "No," she snapped. "You don't understand." Her tone silenced the room. Then, quiet but cutting, she said, "You stood by while a living creature was mistreated. You let it happen. If that had been your son, locked in a room with no food, no water, what would you call it?" Alyssa didn't answer. She couldn't. I spoke next, calmly. "I'm not stopping this. I want the court to hear everything." Her mother looked at me, her expression fierce but supportive. "And you're right, too. Whatever happens between you and Alyssa, I support it." Alyssa left again. This time, she didn't even take a bag. 3 weeks later, we were in court. Miranda and Chad showed up looking like ghosts, dark circles under their eyes, stiff postures, hiding behind their bargain lawyer like kids hiding behind their mom's leg. My lawyer, by contrast, was calm and methodical. He laid out everything: the unpaid babysitting, the manipulation, the footage, the photos, the vet bills, the note I found on the counter. Bailey, the whole timeline. Then came the question that pierced the room. "Is it true you entered the plaintiff's property and removed their dog?" Miranda stammered. "We didn't steal her. We were just trying to help." The judge narrowed his eyes. "You put her in your basement. Alone. No food. No water. For days. That is not helping." They tried to backpedal, but it was too late. The countersuit was dismissed on the spot. But it didn't end there. The judge referred the case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. That's when it all started to fall apart. Chad got suspended from work while the investigation was open. Miranda's nursing license went under review. Their carefully curated facade, the hard-working couple with the adorable kid, began to crack and crumble. But the worst part came later. A week after the hearing, I got a call from Child Protective Services. Someone had filed a concern about Landon's home life. They asked me questions about the house, Miranda's behavior, Chad's temper, whether I'd ever seen anything that felt off. And I told the truth. All of it. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't lie, but I didn't protect them either. I told them about Landon's calls, his voice breaking as he asked why I didn't love him anymore. I told them how his parents used him like a pawn, how quickly they turned on me the moment I set a boundary, how they'd scream at each other with him just a room away. And then the caseworker said something that made my stomach drop. "You're not the only person who's come forward." Neighbors had spoken up. One said they saw Miranda yelling at Landon in the driveway. Harsh, unrelenting. Another friend of the family told CPS that Chad drinks more than he admits. The cracks had been there all along. I had just been the spark that exposed them. But I still wasn't finished. Because I had one last piece left. One card I hadn't played. One quiet little truth that nobody saw coming. It had been sitting there for over a year. Waiting. You see, when I first started watching Landon on the weekends, I set up a nanny cam in my living room. Nothing hidden, just a basic camera pointed at the couch and play area. For safety. Landon was a sweet kid, but accidents happen. I wanted footage, just in case. I'd forgotten all about it. But after the lawsuit, after Bailey, after CPS, I remembered. So I went back. Just to watch. Not looking for anything. Just remembering. And that's when I found it. She stayed longer than usual, saying she needed the bathroom. 15 minutes passed. When she came out, something was off. Eyes red. Speech slurred. Movements clumsy. I remembered that night vividly now. She kept texting me after she left, said she didn't feel well, asked if she could come back early, said she was sick. But the footage told a different story. And that story was the nail in the coffin. She thought I wasn't watching, but I was. Or at least, the camera was. A basic nanny cam I'd set up ages ago, pointed at the couch and play area. Not hidden, not secret. Just a safety measure I'd long forgotten about. Until all of this. I went back through the old footage, not even knowing what I was hoping to find. Maybe some kind of closure. Maybe proof that I hadn't imagined how strange things had gotten. And there it was. A Saturday night, maybe 5 months ago. Miranda had dropped Landon off a little later than usual, around 7 p.m. She said she needed to use the bathroom before heading back out. I remembered that night suddenly, how weird she seemed, how long she was in there, how off her energy felt. But the footage confirmed it. After she came out of the bathroom, when she thought I wasn't looking, she reached into her purse, pulled out a small, amber pill bottle, dumped 2 pills into her palm, swallowed them dry. No water, no hesitation. Then she sat down like nothing had happened. Within minutes, the change was obvious. Her eyes were red, speech slurred, movements unsteady. I hadn't noticed at the time, or maybe I did, but I talked myself out of it, told myself I was being judgmental, overreacting. But there it was in high definition. She was high, in my house, around Landon. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about petty arguments, or stolen favors, or ungrateful relatives. This was danger. I clipped the footage and sent it straight to CPS. That video became the final nail in the coffin. 2 weeks later, CPS stepped in. A temporary removal order was filed, and Landon was placed with Miranda's sister in Colorado while the investigation moved forward. That same night, my phone blew up. Voicemail after voicemail. Dozens of missed calls. Miranda sobbing. Miranda screaming. Miranda begging. Telling me I'd ruined her life. That I'd twisted everything. That she wasn't a bad mom, that she was just tired. Just stressed. As if stress made it okay to pop pills and leave your child with someone else like a chore. Chet only called once. He didn't yell. Didn't plead. All he said was, "You win." Then he hung up. But it was never about winning. It wasn't a game. This wasn't revenge. Not in the traditional sense. This was about finally being seen. About all the weekends I gave up for free. All the errands I ran. All the help I offered. All the thank yous I never got. And the one time I asked for something back, something reasonable, they turned me into the enemy. But I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I was just done. Bailey made a full recovery. She's at a healthy weight again, full of energy. She still flinches when doors slam. Still follows me from room to room, like she wants to be sure I'll never leave her again. Sometimes, that breaks my heart. Other times, it reminds me of how far we've come. Alyssa moved out 2 weeks after the trial. We filed for divorce shortly after. She tried to fight for half the house, of course, but I had the records. The receipts. Every payment. Every renovation. My name, my money. My lawyer didn't go easy on her. She walked away with far less than she expected. I haven't heard from her since. And to be honest, I don't miss her. People always imagine revenge as loud, explosive, something out of a movie. But the best revenge I've ever tasted? It was quiet. It was walking Bailey through the park on a Saturday morning instead of babysitting for free. It was opening my fridge and knowing every single thing inside was mine. No last-minute panic over whether a picky child would complain again. It was sleeping in. It was silence. Landon's still living with Miranda's sister. She sends me updates now and then. He's doing better. Enrolled in a new school. He still asks about me sometimes. Maybe one day I'll visit. But not yet. That chapter is closed. And when people ask me why I finally cut ties with my family, I don't sugarcoat it anymore. I tell them the truth. They laughed when I asked for help. Then they took my dog, starved her, and called me selfish. That's all it takes. People understand. And now, so do I. Helping people doesn't mean you owe them forever. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forget. And trust? Once it's broken, sometimes, it never comes back. And that's okay. Because now, it's just me and Bailey. And for the first time in a long time, that's more than enough.